Well, hello there, Internet. My name is Jody Fitzpatrick, and in this journey, I guess you could say, we're going to be creating a Django CMS system. I know there's a couple out there, but the goal behind this is to allow for easier admin customization as well as getting applications that are extendable. My goal is kind of create a WordPress type system, but for Django. So Django has a couple of issues that is not exactly like PHP. So Django uses Python. If you're not aware, you should know that. So one of the main problems about Python versus PHP is that Python requires items to be recompiled in order for it to work. So whenever you change code, you essentially have you have to restart the process. Whereas for PHP, typically whenever you save code, you can run that in runtime because it's compiled each time it's ran, unless you have something like a cache version. So the goal of what we're trying to get accomplished is to create a CMS system. So the goal of this CMS system is to allow for rapid application development. So I don't have a name yet. I'm kind of thinking about calling it Draft for the Django's Rapid Application Framework technology. Not exactly sure yet, but that's just the name I'm going to stick with for right now. It can change, but let's jump in and kind of see what we're trying to do. So the way that I kind of envision this working is that you of course have your main application, and then with that application you're going to have certain sections. Now, for example, you'll have your menu. You have your menu. You'll have your header, of course. You may have another header over here. The section, you could have a left column, a right column. Of course, column that's in the middle. You have your main primary content. And you'll have your below content. Maybe you'll have a footer, another section. It doesn't matter. Just to kind of give a visualization of the type of system. So the way I see it is that the application would understand that there is only one component per run. However, you can have multiple blocks, and this is what I'm going to consider this. So each one of these blocks represents a block except for the main content, which is the component. So there can only be one of those. And the way that I see this is that from the menu option, we'll be able to see what component is going to be loaded. We'll be able to see which blocks is also going to be put to the page. So I have some of this kind of pre-planned, and I have some basic code foundations, but we're going to look at some of the code that I already have, and we're going to kind of recode the code that I already have to make more sense in this application. So let's just actually go ahead and kind of get started here. So I've created a new application, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at some of the things that I've actually already installed. So the only thing I've really done so far is call white noise. I installed white noise, and essentially what that's going to do is that is going to allow you to get your static files and scroll down just a little bit. we can see that we added the static directories, the base path to the static files, so those can be rendered. That's essentially the only thing that we've done. I haven't migrated a database, haven't created a database. I do believe that this is just the database that comes default with the application. For developing this right out the box until we hit production, we can use SQLite. I don't see any issues right away, and of course if we hit issues that require us to use a different database, we'll do that at the appropriate time. Okay, so I want to keep this first video kind of short. I just want to give you kind of a overall glimpse of what I want to accomplish. So what I imagine accomplishing is the URL is going to call, and let's create a new board here so we can kind of visualize what we're talking about. And let's see if we can refresh this. Let's just grab a new one. Alright, so let's kind of plan out our process here. So we'll have our request that comes in. Okay, so we have our request popping in from the user. From that, what we'll do is we'll look at the URL being requested. And from that, what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to check the database to see if that URL is being referenced within a menu item. And if it has, what's going to happen is we will send that data, that component data that we need to render. Okay, so we have the component that we need to render, which would then go to the template engine. Now there's a couple other steps to this, but you got to forgive my beautiful artwork here, but that's send that to the template engine. So we have the request, we look at the URL, we check the database for a menu item that matches the URL being requested. If we get a component, we then return a template. However, if we do not find it, what we're going to do is some little bit of magic where we're going to kind of break down the URL. So we'll do a breakdown of the URL, and that will essentially allow us to never really have to touch the urls.py file except for once, unless we want to use something else other than the draft framework that I plan on creating. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. In the next video, we're going to get started with doing some coding together. I hope you follow along. I hope that this will be useful to you. We will push this to GitHub. I will push this to GitHub as soon as I can. So, alright. So, I'm happy to get started. Talk to you guys soon. If you have any questions, post a comment, and let's just get started.